2-day online training of women with disabilities. Theme: COVID-19 pandemic, improving the responsiveness of humanitarian and health systems in Nigeria to the needs of women with disabilities. Organized by BONews Service with support from Urgent Action Fund Africa. Facilitators: Ekaite Judisumo, National President, Joint National Association of Persons with Disabilities, JONAPID, and founder, Factive Disability Plus. Dr. Adebukola Adebayo, Chairman, JONAPID Lagos, and founder, HORDC. Shola Abe, journalist and young leader, Women Deliver.
Use the chat and respond in a timely manner. Mute the microphone if you are not speaking. There is a session where you can raise your hand if you have any comments or want to say anything. For the purpose of the deaf participant, the interpreter can use the chat box also to make comments or raise your hand to pass the message across. Now, the next information is for the attendance. There is a link on chat box for the attendance. It will cost us nothing more than 2 minutes to fill the attendance. We should understand that the attendance is quite important, so we can get the data reimbursement. At the end of the meeting today, we send the payment sheet to all the participants via email, and we will need to fill it before the next tomorrow. To any question, please don't hesitate to put your question comment in the chat box.
Oh, thank you, Omolara. I think we are having issues with the network here. So
Okay.
I've already muted everyone. So if you don't have anything to say, kindly mute your microphone for now. So I'll proceed to the opening remarks for today, and I'll be sharing that to us also. So once again, just like Omolara said, I want to welcome each and every one of us to this meeting today. It's a 2-day training organized by BONews Service with support from the Urgent Action Fund. We understand that since the emergence of the index case of COVID-19 in Nigeria and the corresponding action of the Nigerian government at national and subnational levels to combat the disease, there has been agitation by persons with disabilities for government to make their various COVID-19 interventions disability inclusive. So I believe that persons with disabilities, we actually did BONews carried out a survey, and we realized that there are some of the interventions by the government have not been disability inclusive, either on the aspect of the health intervention. Um, so we realized that there is actually a huge gap in all the interventions being provided by the government at national and subnational levels to combat the disease. So a survey carried out by BONews revealed that women with disabilities are affected by the pandemic in various ways. And it was also discovered that disability inclusion is grossly lacking in all the various interventions, either in the COVID-19 treatment programs, the use of public health infrastructures, the distribution of food relief, and other social support interventions. So this training is actually organized to improve the responsiveness of humanitarian and health systems in Nigeria to the needs of women with disabilities. So what we are doing basically is to ensure that we are trying to build the capacity of women with disabilities to be able to demand their rights to inclusion. So we are not demanding on your behalf, you're making these demands by yourself. So we are trying to empower you, to train you to be able to make this demand. We are taking time to ensure that participants are carefully selected across the country with key attention on various disability clusters. So if you notice, we actually selected participants from across the federation, one person per state, and we're hoping to have, which we have 37 persons, 36 states plus FCC amongst us today. So this is to ensure that we're also able to put our needs and requests to the fore and demand inclusion that we deserve. So like state says nothing about us without us. We need to be included at all points. So I want to enjoy us to pay rapt attention to the conversation. We have among us seasoned and experienced persons, disability inclusive experts. We have communication experts also among us who will be taking us through the 2 days training. I wish us the very best and I want to welcome us once again. Thank you so much for being a part. So right now, I'll be handing over to Ekaite Judisumo, who will be taking us through the very first session in today's meeting. And she'll be taking us on what women with disabilities need to know about the gender perspective and the realities of COVID-19. Ekaite Judisumo is the Executive Director of Active Disability Care. Over to you, madam. Okay, I think before you're able to join us, before Ekaite proceeds with the session for today, I think it would be good to ask us that what are our expectations for the meeting today. We're actually supposed to have like a pre-test to be able to measure what we are expecting to learn from today. And at the end of the training, we'll see how much we've been able to make impact. What have we been able to do so far? So I would like a few persons to tell us exactly what they feel they'll be learning from this training. I've been able to give us a background to what the training is all about. So what exactly do you hope to learn from this training? If you're talking, you can unmute your mic if you want to talk, and you can also put on your video for that purpose. Do you have anyone who wants to start with us? Anyone who wants? Okay. I have someone. Okay. In Phoenix Hot 8 Light, you're raising your hand. Can you please tell us what you have to say? Hello? Can we have a few persons to share with us your expectation from this 2-day training? What do you hope to learn at the 2-day training? If you're having difficulty talking, you can also like trying to, maybe you can't hear us, you can simply type at the chat box. Okay, I can see that some hands are raised.
Okay. Can I go on, please?
Okay, please go ahead.
All right. Let's see from the page. At the end of the training, I would like to have the knowledge on how women with physical challenges can cope with the pandemic, and how we can have our say, both national and international, how to fight for our rights in the country and gain access to our rights. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Any other person? Kenam Museum from Plateau State, if you don't mind.
Okay. Okay. I'm expecting that at the end of the training, I will know my right, be able to know my right.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, maybe one more person, then we can proceed. Once you're done talking, you can mute your microphone. Okay, in the absence of no other intervention or feedback from participants, I think we can proceed with the next presentation for today. And I will hand over to our mommy in the house, over to you.
Hello, friends. Good morning.
Good morning and welcome, madam.
I want to be sure everyone is hearing me. I'm checking to see. So good morning. Of connection problem.
Okay, I can hear you, and I think a few persons are nodding on the video that they can hear you too.
I just wanted to be sure people can hear me so I don't talk to myself. So if they can hear, maybe they are not unmuting their mic, that's fine.
Okay, we are hearing you.
Ma.
Good morning, ma. We are hearing you.
All right.
you.
Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so very much. I can see lots of friends around here. It's so nice to be here and to have these beautiful women join us at this training. The time is limited, and there's so much background noise coming from somewhere. Please, can we try to mute our mic? This one is even. Okay then. Great. So today we are supposed to just go through what we already know, and my section today is just going to be very interactive. I'm not just going to be telling you what you don't know, but I think is just a platform for us to interact, re-strategize, and begin to refresh our minds with what we already know, and maybe map out new strategies to do things maybe differently because of the pandemic. I think people are doing things differently and they are calling it the new normal. Sign language interpreter, please do not hesitate to stop me if I begin to go too fast, because naturally I talk a little bit fast. So I'll be glad if you can stop me as we go. So what is it that we expect, and how do we manage to move, this process forward as it relates to pandemic? Before we even go to the nitty-gritty of what we need to do, the strategies or the information that we pass on, I wanted to be sure that we are all on the same page as it relates to disability rights, and that we know exactly our takeoff points, so that when we are speaking, we're all speaking from an informed perspective, and not necessarily from an informed perspective that we are all in the same school of thought. We are coming from the same standpoint. So I'm going to take just a break here.
No way now.
Good morning. Some kind of learning or interaction. I want to hear from you this time around what you think are disability issues, because we are going to be engaging from the disability perspective and we must know where we are coming from. So what do we think is disability, or what the component of disability, or what are disability issues? If we are very clear on that, then we know how to situate that in the discourse of the pandemic and how to fight for our right. Like one of the participants said, our expectation is that she's here to learn on how best we can fight for our rights. And for us to be able to fight for our rights collectively as a people, we must be coming from the same page. So there will be no dissenting voices when it's time for us to engage. So at this point in time, I really want to take a break to hear from you what you think um, disability issues are all about. So please, who wants to go first? Hello?
Who would like to go
We're
first
just
as a
hearing,
question?
yes.
Yes, Saz. Amina Ahmed from Niger State. Would you like to talk about that?
Hello.
Hello, can I hear you? Please, let's get interactive. I want to fight
Hello.
for our rights, for women with disabilities. Yes, I can hear.
Hello, ma. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Now that I speak by answer, what
Oh,
I hope
Tare.
to
Okay.
achieve what I hope to achieve at the end of our 2 days training, making it locally for our PWD women in rural areas to benefit by not giving all the responsibilities to government agencies alone. Rather, it should be handled by PWD women stakeholders in various communities so that the impact of the program will be felt by the targeted audience. Is that taken? Hello, can
Yes,
you hear me?
yes, Tare, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, that's perfect. That's perfect. So what we are asking of now, what why are we gathered here today? Is it not because we want to fight for disability rights? We want to be
Exactly.
included. So what are the issues? That is all I'm asking. What are the issues? Terry, you already know, you have a sense of direction, which is very good, which is a good takeoff. You want rural women to benefit. And so it's not kind of an elitist kind of a thing. So as women with disabilities, when we gather now, what will we be saying? So what will we say to those that we'll be talking to? As in, we've been marginalized, we've been excluded. So what? So what? What will you be saying? Why are we even here? Hello, sisters. I know we are very smart. It's nothing. There's nothing to think about this. Please, can somebody, let's just keep contributing because there's nothing like a special.
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, my sister.
Yes. Disability, in my own perspective, is all about a condition that restricted an individual from performing a certain task which he or she would have been able to be doing by himself. As a result of that, he or she needs an assistance, someone. Now, the issue in this situation of COVID-19 is that persons with disabilities suffer most. They suffer things like, stigmatization, denial of rights, exclusion from palliative, and many other things. They suffer strictly because even in their some of us in our various homes, we suffer, discrimination. We suffer a lot of things, human violation, and all these. What we are going to talk about, that these are really the issues that we are facing as people with disabilities.
Absolutely. You have mentioned some keywords there. Discrimination, marginalization. Okay.
Marginalization.
Okay. So thank you so much, my sister, for that contribution. Can we hear from another person?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Please bless from Ogun State.
Okay,
Please, ma, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, ma, thank you, ma. Yes, talking about the disability issues, I think my own school of thought, there are issues like challenges faced by people with disabilities, and we have various kinds of them, like above mentioned. But in other ways, in other way around, I can also say the challenges might include underration from people, like thinking as a result of being a challenged person, there are some things we are limited to, or thinking that because you cannot see or you cannot talk, you shouldn't be able to participate in this activity or you shouldn't be able to do this. So those are the things I feel we should talk about so that the public will know that there is ability in disability. The fact that someone has a challenge doesn't mean that they are limited to some participation or to some actions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, my sister. That's it.
Hello.
That's it. Hello, please. Yes, please. I can. Yeah.
Okay. I'm hoping to see that we have an inclusive world where women with disabilities are included in the development agenda and women's movement in Nigeria.
Okay, absolutely. You see, because any other contribution, because we are doing so well on this. All right. So
Hello. Good morning.
yes, good morning.
I'm Stella from Ebonyi State.
Okay.
I want to, yes, my contribution on the aspect of hello.
Hello.
My own contribution is on the aspect of employment.
Okay.
So we need to let people know that we have 5%. There's 5% every employment in Nigeria allocated to us. Create the awareness to persons with disabilities, women, so that they will go and fight for their rights.
Good.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much. I have limited time. I wonder how much time I've got here. Maybe just like 30 minutes. So I need to, is it 30? Yes, I think so. So I need to really run. I want to thank you very much for your contribution, which is okay. I just wanted to check that we are all on the same page. Because if we say we are women with disabilities and we are fighting for our rights, what are those rights that we are fighting for? What are those rights? What kind of rights? I mean, are we on the same page? Will we be engaging the supply side actors and we are talking from different perspectives? Imagine if we went to a supply side actor for an advocacy visit and we say, we are here as women with disabilities and these are issues and these are what to be. Imagine if some of us, there's so much noise background noise. Can you mute everyone again?
Hello?
Oh, yes, I can. It's better now. Hello? Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Okay, let me assume because everyone is muted, they can't talk. But sign language interpreter, if you can hear me, just do something like this. At least I'll use you to track that you're here. Good. Thank you. At least I know everyone is hearing me now. So we will not go to a place and want to do some. We went there on an advocacy visit, and we are saying, okay, collectively we are women with disability. We want to fight for our right or whatever we have gone there for. And they ask each and every one of us to say exactly what brought us there. And before you know, some are saying, we women with disability, people are not caring for us. People are not taking people did not give us food, and then because of that, we have come here because we need to be cared for. And amongst your members, another one will say, well, I'm a woman with a disability. I've come here. I need education. And because I don't have access to education, that is why I've come. Another one will say, they did, maybe in the same group. Another one will say, okay, we are women with disabilities. We have come here, and they are not carrying us along. They are not carrying us along. You understand? So those kind of stuff will make the listener a little bit confused, because we all seem not to be on the same page, and like we are not too sure of why we came. That's why these kind of tiny trainings are always very important, so that we can all be on the same page. I have heard a sister said they have a condition and something happened, which is okay, there's a condition. But for us to be able to speak from an informed perspective and a right-based perspective from the point of strength, we need to get some information right. We need to have some level of amount of knowledge that will enhance us to speak boldly. I'm not talking aggressively. I'm not saying fighting. I'm saying that you have a very rich content that when you open your mouth to ask, it's clear, the message is clear. And so that is why before we will go to the topic for today, which has to do with what women with disability needs to know about gender perspective and realities. What you need to know about gender perspective and realities, I think it would be great for us to even go through what you need to know about disability perspective. When we know what it is about disability perspective, it will be easy for us to now move on to what gender perspective and what the reality is within COVID-19. I'm trying to see if I can share my screen. Let me see if I can share my screen. Okay. Share screen. Okay, so the host has disabled me from sharing. So it's difficult for me to share my screen. Is there any way you can,
Okay. You should be able to share. Okay. Okay, then you can share now.
I can share.
You can
Please,
share
can
now.
you mute everybody again? This is not. Can you mute everybody again?
Very sure, like at the it's muted. So it bounces. Then yes, the problem is from him. The person that is hosting it. Okay.
Hello. Can everyone hear me? Am I even sharing the screen correctly? Can you see
Yes,
anything on the screen?
yes, you can see the screen. Maybe you close the other part, available files at the other part.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Can you still see it? Because I'm not sure I'm seeing it. Can you see?
Okay, yes, absolutely, we can.
Okay, fine. So I'm supposed to exit so that it will be. Let me go to slideshow. Okay. Fine. So Oh, please, can you mute this? Can you? Okay. So if you can see my slide, then we are set to go.
Okay.
Oh my. Please, who is this noise is really becoming unbecoming? Is there any way we can? Is there any way we can call that fellow to please mute his own? I mean, his own mic is really disturbing. But if you can see my screen, so there we go. We are talking of the realities and perspective of gender and disabilities or feminism in COVID-19, a pandemic. But we can't do that except we understand what disabilities issue, the perspective and the realities of disability issue. So I've just shared with you now understanding the concept and perspective and realities of disability, as it were. So before we move to gender perspective and its realities, what are disability realities and its perspective? So let's start to conceptualize it. We know that all this has been happening since the 1970s. There've been a lot of issues around advancing human rights, disability rights. People got a little bit agitated, just the way we are now, getting so angry that a segment of the population have been left aside, as if we were not just around. So we became so invisible and not even heard. It's only when it's time to share some funny used clothes and bags. I'm not saying used clothes and bags of rice are not good. Very good. We all need food, but we shouldn't be.
Complete conversation first.
Oh my God. Experience some kind of exclusion. The experience marginalization. Please, is there any way you can talk to this person by phone, please?
Yeah, I'm actually trying to do that now.
Just let the person know that, I mean, it's really disturbing the training. Okay. So, and people got very angry and they are being excluded. They are being, because of perception, societal perception. It was like, oh, these are just good for nothing. There was World Health WHO report on disability indicates that this bunch of people that are very angry. It has increased from 600 billion to about 1 billion. So, and this set of people, which all of us belong in the class, almost 80%, and 80% of those, they live in low-income developing countries, which includes Nigeria. And the story around us is not nice. The report says that we are impoverished, we are marginalized, we lack access to public health, we lack access to education, we lack access to social services, and all the blah, 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 everything in the negative. That was what the report said. And so it finally concluded by saying that we are now 15% of the population. Meaning that in Nigeria, as it were, if we are 200 million, 15% of that population is what we are. And so you can now see where we brag ourselves to be in over 30 million persons with disability, over blah, blah. That's where the population, the statistics from. It's from the World Bank report. The report also made it clear that economically and other social terms, they don't consider us, and that we are often, most times, regarded as unproductive, incapable of contributing in a positive way, and all blah, blah, blah. And there's too much poverty in our circle that continues. And that we constitute impoverished, marginalized groups, which lack access to education. Oh my God. I thought we were trying to reach out to these people.
I did.
But it's not nice. Please, could you just say it very strongly? Let them know. I don't think they realize that they are disturbing the training. And for a facilitator, I want to hear myself and to be sure that I have the attention of the participant. And by the time I get distracted, I will lose my thoughts. The flow of, and participant will not be able to get exactly, I mean, the training will not achieve, would have achieved its purpose.
Okay, done.
Okay. So that we constitute a large group that has been impoverished and marginalized and all those stories that we already know, and that we lack access to public health, education, and other social services. And that report reflecting in the COVID as it were, because we all saw that all this humanitarian intervention, the social protection intervention, everything put together, there was a huge gap because we are not still considered. So that report is issues are or what disability it is. We have no need from we can describe it anyhow I want to describe it, but for the purpose of our work and to move development programs forward, we have looked at various models and we are going to be dwelling on the social model, human rights model. So those two models are the models that we are going to be dwelling in. But for the purpose of knowledge, it's also good to know that we have what we call the medical model of disability, which says that we are a bunch of sick people. And so because we are sick, people don't really consider us in anything. And that is what reflects in the design and implementation. That is what it used to be in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and even up to 70s. And the charity model or tragedy model saying we are not going to be productive. So what at most we could be seen as people who will just and institutions. Those homes were created so that we can be put in those homes and they will bring to us, take food, take rice, take beans, go and eat and die, eat, sleep, wake up and die. And so so that we may not also constitute some kind of public nuisance, or because of the high level of displeasure and because of their definition of their normative definition, and they don't want us to litter the spaces and cause like unpleasant sights to people. So we are pushed to one institution and we are kept there somewhere, because some call it colonies and something like that is in Abuja. I don't want to mention the name. Some they will say it's whatever, but it's just that we are not pleasant enough. We shouldn't spoil people's sight, and they push us, and that is purely charity. They are not going to tell it to our faces, but they're just going to be bringing those bags of rice, food. So we are not productive. We are not participating. We are just there, eat, sleep, die when the time comes. So then we said that was not good enough, and so we move fastly to what into those three models, which are very, very two models which are very demeaning and almost taking our rights, from us, as it were. So that is what it is. But the social model is what we are dealing with now. For my colleagues who are blind, I have here with me an infographics. You have a circle, and in the middle of the circle, it is written, "The problem is the disabling world." And from the circle arises many arrows. Arrows are propping up from the circles, and one of the arrows is saying that a badly designed building. Before I even go to explaining the infographics, let me briefly tell us that the social model says, yes, we are not denying that fact. We've never asked anybody to come and fix us, to say, okay, give me leg. We are not, we accept where people may have it. Is saying that impairment is not enough to stop. So we are challenging institutions and pulling down barriers society would have constructed, would have brought labeled us as people who are incapable because we have one impairment or the other. So that impairment we are saying is not, don't put us in one institution called Home for the Handicap because we have impairment. That is not true. It is you that is trying to bring us. We have impairment. We have the right to live in community.
Hello?
There's a network problem.
Yeah, I think yes, so I'm trying to reach out to her so we can continue the session with her. Okay, so we are having network issues and she's unable to join us right now due to network. We are all in Nigeria and we know how it could be regarding disability, regarding network issues. Okay, so I would not want us to go to the next presentation right now because she's still very much talking and communicating with us. So I would just want us to reflect on the things she has said. She has been able to talk about the different models of disability that we have. So which do we think is much appropriate? She has been able to talk about the charity model, social model, the right-based model, and the medical model. I think she was talking much about the social model before the network went off. So, as participants, as persons with women with disabilities, which of this model, which of these models do we think is much appropriate or should we deploy? She's trying to connect back now. Hello, ma'am. Okay, while she resolving connection issues, she's already joined. I'm very sure the network keeps going back and forth. Can we talk about which of the disability model that we think is more appropriate? Is it the rights-based model? Is it the charity model? Is it the medical model? Which do we think is much appropriate?
Maybe it's the charity money.
Okay, I can see a couple of messages coming in and people talking about the network. Oluwatobi, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
No, I can't hear you. Hello.
Sorry about the
Sorry
network
about the
issue,
network.
but we're through. I believe it's much
I
better
believe it's
now.
much
So
better
she's back
now.
with
So
us,
she's back with us.
and then we can
Okay.
continue.
Um. So, sorry, friends. I think this is just the downside of the online, meeting.
Especially in Nigeria.
Especially in Nigeria.
It's not strong at all. So I, I'm trying to share my slide again. So, can you see anything?
It's loading.
Loading.
Anyway, so but if you can see anything, um,
We are able to see, okay, the
We
social
are able to
model.
see, okay, the social model.
okay. So I'm trying to do a slideshow. It's like it's not cooperating. So let me leave it at that. So I was talking about how we are running with the social model as it is. Social model is saying that the medical and the charity model is all rubbish. You can't say because I have an impairment, you lock me up in one place and be giving me food. The medical model is saying that we are sick. For the fact we have an impairment does not make us sick. It's not disability does not really translate to health issues. It's not directly related. Everyone who is sick, everyone who has a disability may also have malaria. We have different health issues, but it's not as if because you have an impairment, you are permanently sick. So we threw that one away. I just wanted us to get this background because when we go for advocacy, and we need to speak to the supply side actor, we need them to understand our perspective. So our perspective is that we are coming from the human rights model, we are coming from social model. Our perspective is not the medical model, neither is it the charity model. We are not a bunch of sick people who constantly need help. After all, those without disability or without impairment do also get sick. If mosquito is to bite, we will not discriminate whether you have impairment or not. Now, I'm a polio survivor. I can also have malaria. So that is when I'm sick. I cannot be permanently sick because I'm a polio survivor. I have an impairment, but I'm not sick. So now you have this perspective, this different perspective. Remember, we're looking at the perspective and realities. We're going to be looking at the gender perspective and realities as it is before we can now be situated within the current situation that we are going which is the COVID-19 pandemic. So now I want to assume that we now have this, at least this basic knowledge, that we are working towards the social model. We are working with the human rights model, and that is it. What does the social model say? I was trying to explain to us the other time. It says that it is the way society is constructed. It has nothing to do with us, and that the arrows coming out from the circle, which is the problem, is with the disabling world, is saying there are poor jobs and prospects. There are poor jobs prospects. We have isolated families. We have inaccessible transport, no parking places. We've suffered discrimination and the likes. And those are just the problem. We have stairs everywhere instead of it to have. So what this model is digging is pointing at is simply talking about lack of access and lack of participation. Because if we don't have access, it's going to be difficult to have participation. So after saying all of this, what then is disability? And I need us to understand that generally the social model recognizes that people with disabilities, that we have impairment. There's no denying the fact, but that is not the whole of the issue. There's much more to it. We have impairment, but it's the way society is being constructed that is the problem for us, for those of us who have impairment. And so it simply, which is inclusive society, taking into consideration the diversity that exists. So the social model is saying we are different shapes and sizes. We have the right to be on this planet Earth. When you are constructing, when you are designing, when you are thinking development, don't try to do one size fits all. Remember that they are diverse people. Design your project, design your environment, everything you want to development programs. When you want to design and implement, think that, don't think inclusion, think that there are different people, don't do a one size fits all approach. So what then is disability? It's good that you know what disability is, because that was my opening remark. I was asking us to please give us a perspective of disability, give it to us. And people were saying all that they said, which is all very correct. There's no wrong answer that was given. But for purpose of knowledge, so that we will look smart.
Please,
And
sorry, ma'am.
Okay. I wanted to go now. Are we set to go?
Let's just
Can
hold
I
on to her.
see?
Let,
Are we set to
let's just hold on to her.
I'm set already, but Madam Bless. Okay, yes, you can go on, ma.
fine? And you're not so signed to me when I said to go, so that I will know that. So I was talking about, it's good that we know what it is. So so when we go to do our advocacy, it's social construct, just like gender. The society constructed it. There's not like disability. If I ask you to show me disability, where will you find it? All you will do, you will point out to people, my colleagues who can't see, maybe who can't hear, who can't, those that are blind, those that have hearing impairment, those that have mobility impairment. That's what you point to me as disability. But that's not disability. Those are people who have impairment. Show me disability. Something very abstract. General concept of what disability is and what the issues are. She says people with disability include those who have long-term physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory impairments, which in interaction with various barriers may hinder their full and effective participation in society on an equal basis with others. So we now have a general idea. It means that we have impairment, not denying the fact. But what we are experiencing, marginalization, exclusion that we all crying about, is because society has set up barriers. So in all our work, we must put our eyes on the barriers. It is the barriers that will be pulling down. That is just it. And there are different kinds of barriers. We have the institutional barriers, the environmental barriers, the social barriers, which has to do with the attitude to and all of that. Those are the barriers we'll be working and trying to address. So I want to believe that you have a clear idea of the disability perspective as it is now. So I will just hello. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I was saying that those are the perspective and the realities I wanted to tell you from disability aspect. We now know if there's anything we have taken away from this section is one, people with disabilities and the impairment interacting with negative obstacle in the society that is producing the disability.
Okay.
So our business is that we must make effort to remove all of those barriers for us to have meaningful participation. So I've just finished giving the perspective, the disability perspective as it were. So now let's enter to this topic as it were. What are the gender perspective? So I want us to, when we want to answer this question, we unmute and say, I've given us a background for disability perspective. I want you to use that knowledge to address gender perspective. What is gender? Gender is not male, it's not female.
Yes.
I hope we know.
Yes, of course, we know it.
Fine. So before we go, now, can I be sure that we got the perspective and realities as it has to do with disabilities? Somebody can mute and say yes or no, so that I know we're on the same page. You can also use the chat box. You can also use the chat box.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
So we have to thank you very much. You know,
Yes.
oh, God bless you. Thank you. And now I feel a
Yes.
little bit.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you very much. Aha.
Okay.
So now I know we are all on the same page. We know disability. Now, can somebody tell me what gender is? I haven't heard the word gender. And when you hear gender, what comes to mind? You can unmute and speak. I'm going to take a break here. I've been talking for like 10 or 15 minutes now. Okay? When you hear gender, what comes to mind? Can somebody just tell me? Anything. Remember, we're in a training, there's no wrong answer. Is anybody speaking?
Hello?
Hello, yes, please. Say your name and your state.
Untitled Chapter from Anambra State.
Well done, sister. So
When
you want
you
to
hear gender, something that come on my mind should be it should be that of the opposite sex, male or female.
Okay.
Yes.
That is an ingredient to it. It's a perspective to it. Thank you
Okay,
very much, my sister.
we have a message. We have a box from Boyo Oluwamayowa in Lagos. And she says,
Hello.
a male or female person.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello, yes, I can hear you.
And Salamatu Abdullah from Adama.
Yes, please.
When we say gender, we means we can it's biological words that that we can let's say like for instance it may be a male or a female as the one has rightly said.
Okay. Okay.
That's
a perspective. Yes, I can hear.
Blessing from Ogun State.
Okay, blessings, please. We can hear you.
Okay. It's a socially ascribed meaning or a social constructed word that differentiate the man and the male and the female. That is the roles of the male and female in society.
Yes. Can you please help us further unpack that? Socially constructed that. Can you please help us? I think that is a very good one, but can you please help us unpack
Okay.
what you just
Saying
said?
that, okay, ma, thank you, ma. Saying that it's a socially constructed or ascribed meaning, we have to put it from the perspective that it is socially constructed. That is, it is not. It has not been affirmed. It is given by the society. That is what the society feel it should be. So that is what they ascribe to the sexes, both male and female, in their performance, like in roles they perform. They feel like masculine and the feminism in the society. So it is given by the society and not.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. So that is well said, and that is just it. But can someone take it further? Recall in my earlier conversation, I have said that disability is socially constructed. So what is the similarity now? Because we have used the word, oh my God. Can you mute? I don't know where this background noise is coming from, but in my earlier conversation, I had said that disability is a social construct. And here again, you are telling me
Okay, so you can unmute yourself, Ma, to continue. I have to mute everybody and made it impossible for people to unmute themselves.
Okay.
Thank you. I
Okay,
think
now
it's more for
it's
me
okay.
now.
So I was saying that I have unmuted. So I was saying that we even down the line, we're beginning to see that there's similarity between gender and disability, because we have said disability earlier is a social construct, and here someone has defined gender as socially constructed, roles or biases or whatever. And so it means disability also is socially constructed with biases and all of that. So I'm just trying to make us think a little bit further, seeing the similarities between gender and disability, because that is going to be the foundation for which we will start our advocacy and to understand correctly what it is. And that will help us to identify the gaps, as it were, in our sex that is ascribed to us biologically. Just not. So we are women, first of all, and now we have impairment that puts us in the class of disability. So if gender is all about socially ascribed, people sat down and say, this is because biologically you are female and biologically you are male, and society begin to think, yes, this is what male should do, this is what female should do. Female should not drive trailers, men should not cook, women should not be mechanic, men should not bath babies. Are you getting all those things? Nobody is not. We just sat down within ourselves and started ascribing certain roles and functionality based on our biological sex. So biologically, I'm a male, a female, one is a male, and say, okay, this one means, you see, and that brings about biases. And where are all these things coming from? It's coming from the background that has some cultural connotations, native traditional practices, and what every other thing that comes with it, because of the stereotypes we have about the female, gender, as it were. So, in understanding the realities and perspective of gender issues within this COVID-19, we must first of all understand the fact we are women and we face the same thing as non-disabled women, as women without disabilities. For instance, what are the realities? The reality is that let's look at our sexual and reproductive health services. We are pregnant. We are women with disabilities, and there's COVID-19. What is the impact on us? And how do we quickly move with this new normal to addressing those gaps? That's why we are here. Things are going to be done differently. Remember, before now, we have been struggling and how for women to even hear us. Within the women's movement, we don't have a space, we don't have a voice. And yet we are women. So you see, women who are being discriminated against by society are also discriminating against women with disabilities. So we have a lot of burden to face. So now that we understand basically the disability perspective and realities, what are the gender perspective and realities? So this again is what I will throw back to us. I need you to unmute and also say, if you have to say, what are the specific experiences? What have you experienced as a woman with disability because of COVID-19? These are just experience sharing. It is from this experience sharing that will now form the foundation to helping us understand collectively what the basic realities are and what the perspective are and how we can design intervention. I have less than 5 minutes or 7 minutes to go for this section. So I wanted us to please respond. As a woman with disability during this COVID-19, what was it that you faced that was a little bit complicated or different from your daily from the daily activities or daily routines of your life? So I will stop here for like a minute and I would like to hear our responses. A woman with disability, you have lived within this COVID-19. What was it that you experienced? What was your experience or experiences?
I would also want to implore our deaf participants to also contribute as much as possible. You can use the chat box or you communicate with the sign language interpreter can also disseminate whatever it is you have for us in the house. So let's try to make it as engaging as possible. Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, please. I'm talking to a very smart class. I'm sure we still have 37 participants in the room. Please, let's make it's nothing difficult now. Okay, let's even start from palliative. Okay, let's discuss palliative. If that is the first one I will even pick. How did it happen? Did it get to you? How did you get your own? And how did that impact in your status as a woman with a disability? Did that in any way contribute to you not getting palliative? Or what happened? Can we please just discuss? The floor is open.
Okay, I think you may have to raise your hand to talk because of the features why I have to mute everybody. And for you to be able to unmute yourself, I think I need to deactivate that from here. If you have anything to say because of the background noise, you can just indicate by raising your hand. Okay, someone is trying to talk here. Nokia 3.2, no name to us that.
Okay, please.
Okay, so now you can.
Okay, is
The
anyone
user with
starting?
Nokia 3, yes. The user with Nokia 3.2, you can go ahead to make a comment.
Oh.
Good afternoon. Go ahead.
Yeah, the new experience so far pandemic whenever I go to bank, I find it very difficult. Hello?
I can hear you. Please
Hello?
move on.
I do,
Just speak on. I can hear.
I do find it very difficult to enter the bank, enter in and make my, transactions. You know, when you go there, you have to fill in outside by number. When you account to go in. As a person with disability or a woman with disability, if others start struggling there, I don't think it's right to struggle with at the entrance. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. That's very important. So it becomes extra difficult for
Hello,
you.
I have a
Yeah. Please speak on. Yes, please.
Okay, my name is one of from Anambra.
Okay.
On the side of palliative, I can say that being women with disability, being a person with disability, doesn't stop us from getting our palliative. Yeah, in Anambra, it depends on the individual perspective.
Hello.
Those sharing the perspective.
Okay.
Even include us, the general, the disability body as a or disability group as a body, not talk of remembering women with disability. But when we wrote to them, when we tell them to give us something on basis of being a woman differently, but on
Okay. The network is so bad, but I can get you. I can get what you have said. So can we take like 2 more comments so that I can just close this section?
Hello. 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 Can I come in?
Please speak. We are listening.
Hello.
Please speak on.
Hello, I'm Kenan Nizim from Plateau State.
Okay.
I make a passionate appeal to the Honorable Minister. And she gave me some palliative, and it was during lockdown. Instead of calling the women with disabilities, we gathered in one place, but because of the lockdown, there was no vehicular movement. So I had to take both palliatives then in their houses. I had to move from one place to another because I have a pass. That was what happened.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Hello, this Scholastica.
Okay, yes, Scholastica, I can hear you.
Hello, I'm from Abuja. Yes. I had a problem at the bank during this lockdown. My bank, there were just few branches that were opened, so I could go to my bank. I had to go and pay for this prepared meter. The bank giving to me was not mine, so I went to one around my area, the airport road. I'm used to getting to the bank and giving this preferential treatment as a person with disability. But the one I went to, they didn't even, when I even wanted to enter, I refused. And they were to close by 2. But I stood by, I was given a number. By the time I got to I got into and they said they were taking five people at a time. 5 people went. I ran to be part of 5. I was the man said no, go back. They were already complete. Then I had to quarrel with the man. That what nonsense is this? I'm a woman with disability. Others are seen. I'm not seen as they run. You shouldn't even expect me to run to be maybe among the 5. I should be allowed in. Because then he said, why should I that was what I was allowed. Because such a thing has never happened to me. I felt so bad that day.
A huge challenge.
Yes, because I wanted 5 people. You wouldn't expect me to be running for 5 people going in. I think I should have been called. So when I challenged the security, was then that they allowed me.
Very good. Hello. So
hello.
Hello, please speak on because we have just less than 10 minutes.
Okay, I just want to say that the problem I found during this lockdown is that of transportation. So I found it very difficult to attend to go to hospital because I was sick that during that time. So
Okay.
I used to pay about 1,000 naira to take me to the hospital and
Hello?
1,000 naira to bring me back home. So seriously, the lockdown affected me.
Sorry,
Thank
what's your
you.
name, please? What's your name, please? You
You
talked
didn't
about
say your
having
name
issues.
and your state.
Yes, exactly.
Hello?
It's Elamu from Adamawa.
Oh, Adamawa. Okay. Okay.
Repeat
Cool.
the name again, please.
Hello?
Who was saying hello? Please just speak now. Speak up.
Hello? Hello?
We can hear you.
Hello?
Please go on.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good
Morning.
morning.
My name is Bola Tito from Osun State.
Okay. Bola, you're welcome.
Yes, ma. This palliative did not give women with disability in Osun State, and no women with disability are giving this palliative.
I quickly move on. The next 5 minutes that should be done.
Okay.
Okay. So thank you very much. Boss, you may want to mute everyone again. I don't know if it's okay.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Okay, so you can continue, Ma, while we can proceed to the next session.
Okay, fine. So now, what you need to know as women with this.
Why haven't you been answering? My cell phone is a signal, Mr. Cipriano. Just taking a walk. So are you going to play or are you going to talk? Huh? I'm getting cold, Chef. What's going on, boss? I can tell. Because you're an idiot. You left your fingerprints at Moses' apartment, and I told you very clearly to be extra careful. No. Well, thanks a lot to that. The police already know that you were there on that day, and he gave them.
Okay, so I have to mute everyone. Okay, so I have to unmute her right now so we can proceed with the session. Hello, ma'am.
Have you unmuted me?
Oh yes, yes.
But may I submit that tomorrow shouldn't be like this? Could you please identify a particular uh, person and really plead with the person to please take it easy? He had really almost spoiled this meeting, if not for the patients, and that we are all friends here. Otherwise, it's very disturbing what has happened so far, interrupting talks and all of that. So
Yeah.
back to colleagues, like I was saying, all you need to know the reality. So you are now well grounded in disability issues. You know what the issues are. You know you are someone who has an impairment or have impairment, and you're not denying that fact. But what you are saying emphatically is that society is for all. And so when you are thinking any development program or whatever, any intervention, think inclusion, think disabilities. If the humanitarian effort, I mean, if the humanitarian, yes, intervention had talked about inclusion and disability, we wouldn't be having these gaps that we're all crying about now. So that is it. For the gender perspective, you're a woman. So you're a woman with a disability. So you have two things to deal with now. While you are trying to understand, trying to push for society to understand disability issue, you are joining other women to push for women's issue or the gender issue, as it were. So saying that, as a woman, naturally society will not give you that space because of negative cultural practices and because of patriarchy. We say it's a men's world. Because of patriarchy, we are given the back seat. So a woman with a disability, you can imagine how further down we would have gone. So you have issue. What are women's issue? Women's issues are very clear because of the feminism or the feminine aspect of them. For instance, they have clear sexual and reproductive health and rights issues that may be different from that of the man. We know that when it comes to economic issue, we don't get jobs. Even our jobs are unpaid jobs. You sit at home, you bath the baby, you clean the house. They don't call it work. Nobody pays you for that. That's what we call unpaid work, which is we are trying to monetize as it were now. You are a single mother. You need to care for your children. So all of these women's issue, economic empowerment, it's not there. Political participation is not there. So what you'll be dealing with is dealing with patriarchy and dealing with disability. So within this COVID, 19 that we are pushing, what is it that you need to understand? Someone said she wanted to go to the hospital and it became so expensive and even the access wasn't there. Imagine if you were under labor and during this COVID-19 and in the hospital, I don't know what is wrong with our health system. There's so much, you just turn patients back. Everyone is a potential COVID-19, patient, and you are pregnant. What will it be for you? As a pregnant woman with a disability is going to be slightly different from a pregnant woman without a disability. So what is it that you're looking at? The reality on ground is that you have disability issue, which is the barriers you have to deal with. You have the patriarchal issue that you have to deal with. So going forward, now that we know the issues, what are we going to do with this knowledge? It means our eyes, our ears has to be open. I'll give us an example. There's this economic intervention for people to, bring back their businesses on ground. And do not forget that as women with disabilities, a lot of us, 99% of us, are in the informal sector, doing our small businesses, doing our recharge cards, selling our corn, frying our akara, doing our hairdressing. We're self-employed. How did COVID-19 impact on those businesses? And as a woman with a disability, what is the cost implication for you? So that when you have this knowledge, when CBN is saying, hey, they have money for people to bring back their businesses, women with disability collectively should be able to say, hey, we are here. We are the worst hit in terms of poverty. COVID-19 really affected us as people with disabilities. And as women, it was even worse for us. We have the right to take this funding or the money that is being put out for people to revitalize their businesses. So if you don't understand how the COVID has affected you as a woman with disability, it's going to be difficult for you to ask for that help in a very constructive manner. Did we get the reality now? Okay, so I can see somebody saying, I concur with the materials being sent to individual. If possible, the network has not been very friendly. I want to agree with you, my sister, that is the reality on ground. So then let's ensure we register. Okay, this in the information box. I thought there was any other comment that I have not attended to, but I wanted to be sure that if there's anything we've lived this training with, is that we now understand that when we are talking disability issue, it's not the blind eye, it's not the deaf ear, it's not the leg that is broken or not able to move, it's not the paralyzed leg, blind eye, deaf ear, or that is not disability. You must get that very straight. So when you are going to engage, don't say, you see this my leg that is broken, this my eye. Nobody wants to know. It's diversity. But what we should be saying is that we have impairment, we are here and we are not participating. So the team say, why are you not participating? Then from an informed perspective, you should say, yes, because this happened, this happened, this happened. If you don't know those ingredients, it's going to be extremely difficult for you to engage. But I'm happy to take this conversation forward and to build on that, because we've taken so much time because of the network that has been fluctuating. At this point in time, I want to pause or round off or stop or summarize by saying that it has been a nice time talking with all of us, and that all that you need to do is to know that Disability issue is not about your impairment, it's about the barriers that you face. Gender issues is about the patriarchy nature of the society, which has excluded women. And the reality on ground is that if you have a disability and you are a woman, you are going to face a triple of all the conditions. COVID-19 will impact with you worst, and your economic power will be lost. How do you get those things back in the recovery phase going forward? At this point, I want to thank you for your attention. And sorry about the network. It's been fluctuating, will be in and out, but all the same, I want to believe that we had a nice time interacting on this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ma. I'm very sure everybody would accept that it's been so enlightening. And like you said at the beginning, it's more like telling us what we already know. But even in a different perspective, we're able to share our experiences, talk about what we faced during the lockdown and how we have been coping. And you're able to tell us, okay, there's nothing about disability. It's about it's just like a construct and the barriers that we face. And I like the way you are trying to end the conversation by saying that the disability issues is not about your impairment, but about the barriers you face. So on that note, I want to appreciate you very much, Ma, for taking out time to talk to us today. We really do appreciate you. Thank you so much, Ma. So we're handing over to the next facilitator.
Welcome.
Thank you, Ma. I'll be handing over to the next facilitator, Dr. Adebukola Adebayo. He is the founder, HORDC, and he is a disability inclusive expert, a development expert, and he will be taking us through the next session. And the next session is the realities of humanitarian situations in Nigeria. Dr. Adebayo, over to you, sir. Okay, I have to unmute.
Okay, good afternoon. I almost said ladies and gentlemen, but good afternoon, very, very distinguished and beautiful women, Nigerian women. Maybe let me say with disabilities. I'm a man, but I'm happy to associate with women with disabilities. It's our constituency, and it's in the spirit of inclusiveness. You see, you are being inclusive. That's why you have allowed me to come and speak with you. But you see, sometimes it's also good that you have men advocating for women. Okay. Because sometimes the women may not be everywhere, even though we want you to be everywhere. It's good that you are everywhere, and that's why we are doing this. But sometimes when the men too are saying it to their colleagues, I think that's one of the ways to achieve a more gender equitable world or society that we are clamoring for. So I'm happy to be here. I'm also happy to hear from our national president, Madam Ekaite. She, like you know, she's the first female president of UNAPID. And so it's a big show for our women. We've now had so many women as state chairpersons in UNAPID. In Lagos here, we used to have a woman before I took over. And so the women are really showing their stuff. And that's the way we want it to be, because we know if women are in charge, then you have peace and tranquility. So today we will be discussing issues around humanitarian crisis. Okay, what are the realities of humanitarian crisis in Nigeria? You know, and how are women with disabilities included in the various response and support strategies that government have put in place? A lot is happening in our country, and COVID-19 has come to show it's like the icing on the cake of the many troubles that we already have in Nigeria. So how, and of course, a lot of responses and a lot of actions are being taken by government and non-governmental organizations, development partners, private sector. Everybody is reacting, everybody is responding the question we as women with disabilities will ask is, where are we in the scheme of all of this? I will just build on what mommy, the national president of JONAPID has said. I'm not really going to flog the issues seriously because she has really laid a very great foundation for us to build on. And I say thank you to her once again. You know, so the question we'll be asking ourselves is, how are we engaged? How are we involved as women with disabilities in all these humanitarian crises? And this is not limited to COVID-19 alone. It's just that COVID-19 is the current show now. How are we being involved? Is our voices heard? Are we represented? Are our needs and aspirations, are they being contained in all these responses and support and all of those that we are seeing? These are the critical questions that as women with disabilities we need to ask ourselves. And that's one of the essence of this program, this training program. Because if we really don't understand the perspective of humanitarian work or humanitarian issues, then we will not be able to know the importance of our involvement. Okay? Because many of the predicaments that we are going through today are as a result of one humanitarian crisis or the other. In most cases, in fact, in all cases, not caused by us. Not caused by us. But of course, no, not caused by us, but as a result of the incorrections, the anomalies in our society. But ironically, we are at the receiving end of most of these humanitarian crises. So now, if we are made to suffer the consequences of what we didn't cause, of what we are not the cause of, so how are we then engaged to profile solutions to ensure that we relieve ourselves of, if not all, at least most of these, negative impacts that we are all experiencing? I heard how we've been discussing on issues of this COVID-19 crisis and whether or not we as women with disabilities are part of the process. I've listened to us carefully, and a lot of the questions I'm asking now, you have already answered, even in some of those issues you raised in the previous presentation. And so I will just really highlight again just some of the few things, okay, that we have said before. Now, of course, for every humanitarian crisis that we hear happen in anywhere in the world, women with disabilities in particular, or persons with disabilities in general, are among the most impacted, negatively impacted, because of their high level of vulnerability. Okay? And of course, this happens in various ways. Many of us acquire disability because of this crisis. Many of us have even had disabilities aggravated, worsened because of this crisis. And many of us have suffered several forms of socioeconomic crisis. So apart from even the disability that we acquired or that has gone worse, it also has affected our lives socioeconomically and in so many other ways. And of course, when responses are being designed, it is even more saddening that we are not consulted. Even when they want to intervene, they want to, they want to provide solutions to things affecting us. They want to engage with us or include us in the response. We are not usually consulted to ask, what are our needs? How do these things affect us? and how should government respond to us. Okay, look at what is happening with COVID-19 now. How many women with disabilities have you seen as part of intervention committee or task force or whatever, either at national level or even in your various states? These are some of the questions we are going to ask, as we are going to answer much later. Okay, so we are not even consulted in the process of designing these things, and so at the end of the day, people just bring what they like to us, and mostly because of corruption, because of lack of awareness, ignorance, and all of those low capacity. Many of them don't even know what to do. They just bring whatever they like to us. But of course, many of the barriers that prevent women with disabilities, we all know them. We have highlighted them in the first presentation.
Hello.
Services. So these are some of the situations that we find ourselves as women with disabilities when issues of crisis happen. And so in this presentation, what we will be looking at are just a few things. We will look at what the state of humanitarian crisis is in Nigeria. We will also look at how it is impacting on our women, just like I've been talking about. We just quickly highlight it. Then we will then look at how involved women are, in the management of humanitarian intervention. And then finally, we will talk about the urgent action that we as women with disabilities need to take. Okay, in a very quick way, without belaboring you. I wish it was a face-to-face thing. It would have been more interactive, than it is at the moment. But nonetheless, we will try as much as possible to make it interesting for us. I'm sure BONews will share the materials with us for us to read, and I also urge us as women with disabilities to, of course, do a lot of research. Go to the internet. You get a lot of more information from the UN websites, from so many other websites of development partners. You get a lot of information about these things, because you see, knowledge is power. If as women with disabilities we have a lot of knowledge, many of us, or most of us, are very intelligent women with disabilities. And so when we have knowledge, we have information, then it empowers us more. Then we can engage. No matter who, even if it is Buhari that is sitting down, we can speak to him directly and make our points. And so that's the essence of this training that we will be going through in the next 2 days. Now, looking at the highlights of humanitarian crisis in Nigeria, let's take ourselves back to history memory lane. Many of us know, we will have heard about the Civil War, even if we were not born then. Even up till now, remnants of the Civil War is still staring us in the face in Nigeria. Those who are affected, we are still hearing that they are still crying of neglect, of not being properly catered for, and all of those things. That is so because the Civil War was the first major humanitarian crisis that we suffered in Nigeria. And despite the fact that many people died in their millions, we heard that not less than 2 million people were killed in that crisis. let's even take it for granted. Those that have died, they have all gone. But we don't have records to show, even though we know that so many others, thousands, in their hundreds of thousands, we sustained various degrees of injuries, many of which have become lifelong impairments that they live with up to now. Okay, so what is the situation now is that you find out that many of these people with injuries have become persons with disabilities, and of course, not less than 50% of them are women with disabilities. Many of them, of course, are our mothers today, they are our fathers, and all of those things. But whether we like it or not, that is how it began. And the worsening part of it is that you find out that even there were no policies, there were no laws and policies or institutions set up to respond to to those who sustained lifelong injuries or impairments, including women with disabilities. Okay, many women with disabilities were, many women with disabilities. No, there was no policy, there was no program to target people with disabilities. That's from the Civil War era, and that's where the problem started. So there was nothing on ground at that time to say, oh, those who acquired disabilities at that Civil War, who are still living, this is how we are going to support them. And so everybody just had to fend for themselves. Only recently, it was even Buhari that came to pay the pension of police people or military people that were retired during the Civil War. Can you imagine? It was just this Buhari regime that came to pay the pension or the gratuity or whatever of the military or police officers that were retired during the Civil War. So if police and military people who are retired at that time are just getting their pensions, imagine what was the fate of women or men with disabilities at that time. And that was how our predicament as women of exclusion from humanitarian crisis, that's how it began. We must appreciate this history, because if we don't know where we are coming from, we will not know where we are going to. Okay? We must know that it started as far as the Civil War, so we will know how determined we want to be when we want to start engaging government. It's not something that is as a shallow root. The root is deep, several feet into the ground. Imagine you want to dig up a tree that has been standing for 50 years. You want to dig out a tree, a big tree, a Iroko tree that has been standing for 50 years. I'm sure you won't be using hoe and cutlass to dig such a tree. You go and get the best caterpillar, the best bulldozer to come and pull it down. Okay? So that is how deep our history of exclusion has been as women with disabilities when it comes to humanitarian crisis. And so in fighting it, it's not going to be a tea party. We are going to, you know how you women, when we want to fight, you tie double wrapper. Now, so we are going to tie our wrapper. Okay? We are going to tie double wrapper, if not triple wrapper ourselves. So that by the time we are talking to government, they will know that we mean business. Okay? They will know that we mean serious business. Now, when we leave the issue of Civil War, after the Civil War, a lot of other violent crises have been occurring in Nigeria. From ethno-religious crisis, Maitasini, the recent one is Boko Haram. You have various intercommunal clashes. Amuleri in Anambra, if Modakeke in Oshun, Urobo and Ichekiri in Edo. Okay. So the various intercommunal clashes is there. Ethno-religious crisis, especially in the north, is there. Muslim versus Christian, this one versus that. If you go to Middle Belt, North Central, Tiv versus Jukun, so many intercommunal clashes, even up till now. Boko Haram is there in the northeast. Then you have banditry. That one I just started, cattle rustling. Thieves that are stealing cattle and going to communities to kill them. I mean, you just imagine that even the cattle itself, are we killing them the way we are killing human beings? Okay? Then you now talk of cult clashes, secret cult clashes, violent clashes among secret cults. Then you talk of kidnapping. All these violence I've talked about, most victims are women with disabilities. Okay? They are women with disabilities. Because it's either you're acquiring disability as a result. A lot of men will escape. A lot of them will leave their wives. And acquiring, when we say it impacts on you, we'll get to which kind of impacts we are talking to. We are speaking about. Then we now talk of, apart from violent crisis, you also talk about the health pandemics or epidemics that we have seen in the history of our country. Okay? Hello? Hello?
We are with you. You can go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay, sorry. I think it went off for a while. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You can go ahead.
Okay, all right. So you realize that apart from this violence that is maiming people and displacing people and sending them out of their places of abode and making them more vulnerable, you discover that it's women with disabilities that it will affect more. Because the men, they will quickly take care of themselves. In fact, in most cases, they will be the first to hear about the attacks. And they will quickly move out. But the women, they are the ones that are nursing babies, they are the ones that are pregnant, they are the ones that are taking care of so many things, and they are the ones usually caught up in this whole crisis. You know, when they tell you 15 people are killed, 20 people are killed, 100 people are killed, I wish they always genderize this victim and tell us how many are men, how many are women. That is one. When they tell you, oh, 100 people are killed, 30 people are injured, I wish they always genderize it and tell you how many are men, how many are women, so that we will understand perfectly that it is women that are mostly, bearers of the consequences of humanitarian crisis. That is in terms of violence. Now, let's look at even epidemics and pandemics. That's diseases and things like that, health issues. We've had HIV and AIDS. We've had TB. Thank God they tell us now that we are polio free, and so on and so forth. Now, we have COVID-19. If you take statistics, I'm not talking of those in terms of those who are diagnosed now, but those who are affected. Because if a man is diagnosed, the woman suffers. If a woman is diagnosed, the woman still suffers. I hope you understand what we are trying to say here. So, in head or tail, in any health pandemic or epidemic, okay, it starts as a crisis, then it becomes epidemic, then it becomes pandemic. So, in every health pandemic like COVID-19, those worst hits are women. Whether they are the ones diagnosed, or it is their husbands, or it is their children that are diagnosed. Have you ever remember when you are sick now? It is your mom that always goes in, and if you are admitted, if you're admitted in the hospital, it is your mother that keeps going up and down. So whatever happens to the family is the woman that is affected most. So the question is, how is it also affecting women with disabilities? We will talk about it shortly. Then the other part of it is that apart from the fact that we will have disability, physical, people are men, they acquire disabilities, the people who have health challenge. The fact that as it is, if you sum up all of this put together, Nigeria is more or less becoming, has even become one of the epicenter of humanitarian crisis in the world. As a special group of women with disabilities that have come under for this training. By the time we go back to our states, we are going back, fired on. We are going back, fired on, challenged to really go back and engage in our various states. Okay, so let's have it at the back of our mind that it is no tea party. Boko Haram everywhere, banditry everywhere, kidnapping everywhere, then COVID-19 everywhere. It is a huge crisis in our hands. And as women with disabilities, if we understand and appreciate our level of vulnerability, then we know that this is the time for us to hold each other's hands and speak up for our inclusion. Okay? Now, let's look at how these things have affected us. How has it affected us? Although we don't have any data, and that's part of the problem, lack of data. I just said it now. When they say 10 people die, nobody knows how many are women, how many are men, how many are people with disabilities. They are declaring how many thousands of COVID-19 people now. How many are people with disabilities? Nobody knows. It's like disability is not part of the statistics anymore. It's only when it is convenient for them, they bring disability in. And so long as they are forgetting people with disabilities, then it means that women with disabilities are even, non-existent. That's what it means. So because we don't have data to say, oh, this is the number of women with disabilities that have been impacted, and this is how they have been impacted. No, there hasn't been any major research. But I think FASTIP and BONews are working together to develop a database that all of us as women with disabilities are going to be a part of, beginning from today and even after tomorrow. We are going to be the champion of this database for us to put together the experiences of women with disabilities as far as humanitarian issues are concerned, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic. So we need to start dealing with the issue of data. How many are we? Because when you are going to talk to Minister of Health or Minister of Humanitarian Affairs or Minister of Women Affairs, when you are going to be talking to these people, we need to be telling them figures so that they can appreciate. When you put numbers to something, it makes a lot of sense. It attracts a lot of attention. So we need to start looking at what is the numbers. So the first problem we have is that we don't even know how many are that are affected. But whether we know the number or not, you and I have agreed here that women with disabilities are most affected. When you look at it, as we have explained, when people come to attack a village now, and all the men take off, let me tell you the first people that will take off. Men without disabilities will take off, followed by men with disabilities, because some of them are strong, they are physically strong, they can move, they will move on because they will quickly get the information, they will have moved out. Then women without disabilities will follow. Those ones have no disabilities at all. Even if a woman without disability is pregnant, even if she's carrying a child, whether she'll be rising and falling, at least she can still move around and move on. then the last person that will leave is the woman with disability. And before she will even think of doing anything, the attackers have come. Okay? So, whether we have statistics or not, common sense, logic, and even some researches that have been done, some researches that have been done have shown that women with disabilities are among the worst affected. Then, of course, the fact remains that many of us, women with disabilities, if I'm to ask us our history, how did we get our disabilities? I'm sure, even if those of us on this platform now, on this training, may not have been affected in that way, maybe we have acquired our own disabilities through other means. But I'm sure we may still find one or two among us listening to me today that will say, oh, it was as a result of one crisis or the other that I had this disability. It doesn't have to be Boko Haram. It doesn't have to be it could be it could even be domestic crisis. It could be due to poverty. Poverty itself is a pandemic. Okay? Poverty itself is a pandemic. Okay? So many of us have acquired our disability as a result of this humanitarian crisis. Many of us have also had our disabilities aggravated, like I said earlier at the beginning. Yes, I'm deaf. Yes, I'm blind. Yes, I'm a wheelchair user. But a lot of us have suffered a lot of trauma as a result of this continuous humanitarian crisis. Those of us from the Northeast, I'm sure if we are to share our stories, you will tell us how traumatizing our lives have been. Where we cannot sleep with our two eyes closed. Where we cannot, go out and do our business as usual because of insurgency, because of banditry. Are you telling me there will not be women with disabilities in Katsina where they are killing each other every day? Are you telling me there will be women with disabilities in Kaduna and all those other places where they are experiencing violence? Then, of course, a lot of us, women with disabilities, during all this crisis, whether it is violence or it is health pandemic or COVID-19, a lot of us women with disabilities in these last 4 or 5 months now, a lot of us have been victims of domestic violence, victims of sexual and other forms of abuses. A lot of us have lost our means of livelihood due to the lockdowns because many of our people are petty business people, petty traders. How many of us are employed and collecting salary from government and all of those things? And so, all of these are some of the impacts that we are faced as women with disabilities. Now, let's look at how level of inclusion. If you look at our level of inclusion, how have we been included? Let's start from PTF. I'm sure many of us have been hearing PTF, Presidential Task Force. Who is the woman with disability that is there? Initially, we were hearing some people said, oh, they've been nominated, they've been this. Some people now come and say no data. Even in our various states, are we involved? Are we engaged? These are the questions. It's like rhetorical questions that we keep asking and asking. Okay? And as we speak, there is no documented evidence to show where government has engaged the organized groups of women with disabilities as far as this COVID-19 is concerned. Even not here in Lagos, not even here in Lagos. I can't point to any. So there is no level of involvement. And of course, when the DPOs are being engaged, like I said earlier, you will realize that it is the men that go forward. And they are the ones that will determine who gets what. I mean, the men with disabilities. They are the ones that will determine who gets what, when, and how. Okay? So it is men that always take the space, men with disabilities. Women with disabilities are never, seen out there. Maybe only very extremely very few compared to the number of women with disabilities that we have. And to make matters worse, there is no legal and policy framework. Go to Ministry of Women Affairs now. Ask them whether they have any policy on women with disabilities or any framework or any no. Go to Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. The answer is no. Even our National Disability Act that the Buhari signed, over 1 year now, nothing has been done about it. And by the time they will do anything about it, you will go and check how many men or how many women with disabilities are involved. So you will see that the answer is just no, 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 no. But this is not where we are going. Where we are actually going is that we now need to take urgent action. We know already now. We now already know. Like I heard during while the last presentation was rounding up, we are all sharing our experiences. We already know these problems. It's just that we need to remind ourselves. Sometimes we need to remind ourselves so that we know the gravity of the problem that we have. Now, what urgent action are we going to take? What urgent action are we going to take? First thing is that we must come together. Okay? We need to come together. We need to come together as a group of women with disabilities. If we check at the national level, where is that strong voice? Apart from all these individual NGOs that are doing one thing or the other, I'm sure many of us agree with me that there is no unifying platform for women with disabilities in Nigeria. So this conversation we are having now could be a very good ground for women with disabilities to come together, for us to form a common front to engage, with stakeholders. If we don't have that common front, that common voice, that when you pick a broom, it's easy to break one single broom. But when you have a bunch of brooms, when you all come together, you have women groups now. You have women women lawyers. We have women journalists. We have women this, women that. Where is the voice of women with disabilities in Nigeria? Okay, that's the beginning. In our various states, do we have a common front? In Oyo State, in Edo State, in Imo, in Borno? Can we come to Borno State and say, oh yeah, hey, this is the common front for women with disabilities. This is the strong voice. And then when you now have it across the state levels, then we now all come together to form the national front. Okay? So we need that as a first step. And urgently, because I call it urgent action. If we are not able to come together, we won't be able to engage the authorities. Then the second thing is that we must ask for participation. Hello, it is enough. It's not enough for us to go and be asking, give us food, give us food, give us food. Disability is not synonymous to food. Can somebody ask, how did you arrive at this number that you are giving us? Who is representing us? Who is our voice? Who is on that team of government team that is speaking for us? Is she a woman with disability? These are some of the questions we must ask for participation. So when we come together, the first request we are making is that we are asking for participation, representation. Somebody says, is he a man or a woman? If they say it's a man, then they should add a woman to him. Although I will say if it is a man too, if it is a woman, they should add a man to him, to her. It shouldn't just be women alone. So all of us will work hand in hand. But the first advocacy is that if they say one man is representing you here, no, it's not enough. If it's a man, then they should add a woman to that person. And if they are going to select, they should even select a woman instead of a man, if it's only one slot. Okay, so we must ask for participation. And I will soon round up. Of course, this is going to benefit humanitarian actors, including government, a lot. Because when we are at the table, then we can tell the decision makers, we wear the shoes and we know how it pinches. We can tell them how it is we want it. For example, in Lagos, when we are sharing food, at the point people start complaining, it's not only food they want. Women need sanitary toiletries and all of those materials. Somebody you have asked to stay at home, they cannot go out to buy sanitary materials, toiletry materials. They can't go out. Sanitation is compromised. Then if sanitation is compromised, additional disease is coming. Okay? And these are some of the things that men with disabilities will not appreciate. But there's no way you will achieve sanitary for women with disabilities that will not affect men with disabilities. Okay? So these are the reasons why we must put the women forward. Imagine when the woman goes to the market, she will buy everything that the man needs. She will buy everything that the children need. She knows everything. But the men, do they know everything that women need? No. So we must engage the policymakers. And it's going to help them to be able to really, and of course, we then must, after we achieve representation, we must be able to prioritize the needs. Okay? Many of us, women with disabilities, oftentimes, we are all still living in the era of charity. We have told them we need representation, we need to participate. Okay, when we're now given the space, what are we asking for? What are we asking for? Are we talking about education? Are we talking about health? Are we talking about access to employment? Okay? Name anything in life that women, access to water and hygiene. Are we talking about access to agri sector? These are things we should be pushing forward. Not just asking for food. We are hungry. Everybody is hungry now. It's only disabled people that are hungry. Everybody is hungry. That's taken for granted. Man must eat. But as PWDs, let them not box us to a corner and say all that we need is just food. And then when they are talking of education, we are not there. When they are talking of agri, we are not there. When they are talking of economic development, we are not there. No. Women with disabilities, what we should be talking about should go beyond food relief as far as humanitarian issues are concerned. How are we getting access to Medicare? How are we getting access to services? And so on and so forth. And then, of course, we should encourage, we should become resource persons to humanitarian organizations. We should make ourselves become resource persons to humanitarian organizations, especially in guiding them through when they are designing and planning their programs. So, as women groups, when we come together, we should identify those humanitarian organizations, both those who are government-owned, those who are non-government-owned, all the humanitarian actors, we should identify them and begin to engage with them to help them in designing their programs such that we can make ourselves available for consultation when programs are being designed. And then as women with disabilities, we should also be able to reach out to our colleagues that are not as endowed as we are, maybe educationally or intelligently or whatever it is, especially those in the rural areas. We should be able to organize and reach out to them. So when we are intervening, as for instance during this COVID-19, we should be able to speak for those who don't have the opportunity to come to the towns and cities, to the state capitals, to the local government headquarters to speak. We should represent them fairly. Okay? So all of these things, if we're able to do them, it will help to take our issues forward, in a very great deal. It will help us to achieve the inclusion that we're actually clamoring for. Because it is only when we're able to come together and engage in a constructive way, in an informed way, that's when the status quo can change. That is when we can reverse the trend of exclusion of women with disabilities, especially during humanitarian crisis. When, after all, we are the ones that are even most affected. Like I told you, when there's a crisis anywhere, the men without disabilities will escape. The men with disabilities will follow suit. Our women without disabilities will go. We are always the last to take up. And so if we know all of this, it is important for us to now begin to take what we have called urgent action. From our state levels, we must come together, we must mobilize, and then up to the national level. Because this project is going to be taking us to that national level where we will be engaging with national policymakers to make our voices heard. Let me tell you, in closing, as we speak, the PTF is doing a review. That's the Presidential Task Force is doing a review. So the quicker we are able to come together to present our case, the better it will be for us to achieve inclusion, not just during COVID-19, but in every case of humanitarian crisis, from the northeast to the north central to the south, southwest, everywhere in the country that it is happening, it will help us to get involved and make the difference. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Dr. Adebayo. It's a pleasure having you. And I'm very sure if we should allow you to continue engaging us, we'll still be here till 6 p.m. Thank you very much, sir. We really appreciate you. A quick information before we go to the next presentation, which will be the last for today. I've sent the link for the attendance for today for all of us to fill. It is important that we fill the attendance. So towards the end of the meeting, I will also share the payment sheet, the link to the payment sheet for us so that we can be able to fill it. You need to be able to, your name must correspond with the names that we send links to, because I realized that some people were actually registering more than one person in a state per state. So the name must correspond with what we have, and you must ensure that your detail is accurate with the name you used to fill the registration form. So the name on the registration form must synchronize with the name on the attendance sheet, must also synchronize with the name on the payment form, so that we don't have any issue at the end of today. So let's please try to ensure that we fill that. We'll take all questions and comments at the end of the training. So because of our time, I want to invite Oloruni Shola Abe. She's a journalist and she's a young leader, Women Deliver. Women Deliver is an international platform for women to discuss and engage on various levels, especially on the area of she'll definitely talk to us more about that. Shola, over to you. Hello. Okay, I guess she's having a network issue. So while we wait to get Shola on board, do we have anyone on? Someone here says there's a question and comment. Can you please go ahead with your question? Techno Camon 12. I think it'd be nice if we're able to rename our device when we're joining the meeting so we can identify each participant. Hello, Shola. Okay, Shola, I think you're on. You can go ahead, please. Okay, so you can unmute yourself right now.
Hello.
Okay, please go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. We can hear you. Please go ahead.
This is one of Chapter from Anambra. I want to thank Dr. Odoboye for the wonderful lecture he has given us. I have a few comments and one questions. My comments goes like this: on the area of database, Dr. Odoboye said something about concerning gathering the data through comprehensive data of women with disability in the Nigeria, starting from each state to the national level. And I think Madam Ikaite mentioned it when he said that we are 400 million persons with disability, and about 15 to 20% of them are women. So we need to be sure of our data, so that when we want to engage, we will engage them with exact data of our numbers. And in that data collection, we will make sure that we analyze it in the sense that we have section by section. Women, how many people have married? How many is unmarried? How many are working? How many is employed? How many is not employed? And so deaf, blind, visual, and physical impairment. When we have this data, I think it can help us to go a long way in engaging with critical stakeholders in the issue concerning women with disability in Nigeria. I think we have started doing something like that in Anambra. And coming to the political appointments, I want to beg us to let us engage the critical stakeholders in charge of that, both starting from states to the national level. Any appointment they are given, let them consider women with disabilities. I will use Anambra State as an example. We have about 4 or 5 political appointments with disabilities, but there's no women included. Does it mean that we don't have women in Anambra? We have a lot of them that know what they are doing, but no women in Anambra is appointed as a appointee in political appointment. It's too appalling, and that's my comment.
Thank you so much. That's a very good submission right there.
He said poverty is a pandemic. Please, I want you to throw more light on that, so that they
Can you
explain
take the
it
question
very well for me to understand. Thank you very much.
Madam, can you take the question again?
I said, Dr. Odoboye said that poverty is a pandemic.
Okay.
I want you to throw more light on that, so that it can go down well with me. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, so
Okay.
we'll
Is
respond
that
to
the
all the
only question?
Dr. Adeba,
Okay,
I think
is Shola back now?
Shola, yeah, she's back.
Okay, all right. I'll take the questions later then.
Okay.
Okay.
Shola, can we have you now? Okay, doctor, you may have to proceed. Maybe she's having issues with the audio. Dr. Adebayo.
Okay, well, she talked about issue of clarifying how poverty is a pandemic. Anything that affects a huge population, rapidly, that is persistent, is what we are referring to as a pandemic. Okay, the coverage area, and you all know that poverty. We say that 80% of PWDs are living under below poverty line. And so for us at PWDs, poverty is a pandemic to us because it affects almost all of us. Okay? And so we expect that we should treat it as such. Anything that is affecting almost an entire population, in such a rapid sense, then we should not treat with a kid gloves. So poverty to us is a pandemic that we must attack it as such. Then when we talk of data of course is very key, but of course the statutory bodies charged with the responsibility of gathering data, that's the Bureau of Statistics, either at state level or national level. Many of them do not have disability sensitive data collection tools in gathering their data. So part of our advocacy will then be to engage some of these institutions. But you see, it's not only Bureau of Statistics that collect data, even Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, all of them have departments in charge of research and statistics. So whatever data they have, we should work with them to ensure that disabilities are mainstreamed. Like if you go to the hospital now, the information card that they will fill, I don't think any of those information include your disability status. If you go to school, you want to register a child for school, in most cases, they will not ask you what the disability status of that child. Okay? So we need to put up advocacy so that all these data collection agencies will be sensitive. Data is not something that we can only do our best as DPOs or disabled people organizations to gather, the little we can. And that's why the associations must come to play as well. We must, as an association, begin to develop our own database of our members. So we shouldn't just be an association by mouth. We must be an association in the real sense of it. If you go to Nigerian Bar Association, they can tell you how many lawyers are in Nigeria. If you go to Nigerian Medical Association, the same thing. Can they come to JONAPID in our state or at national level and ask you how many PWDs do we have? If not all these UN figures that we keep quoting, 29 million, 30 million. So we must begin to engage to also build our own local database too. Then, of course, you talked about political position. Of course, this is why we are doing this training. And I know so many of us have taken part in many other trainings before now, where we've talked about issues of political participation. That's another issue for another day. But what I would say there is that we cannot sit back and expect political power to come to us. We as women with disabilities, we must reach out. We must support ourselves. That's why I talked about coming together as a common force. If I come to Anambra State and I say that, oh, this is the organized women with disabilities. Okay, so we can we come to Anambra State or Lagos State and say, hey, this is the group of women with disabilities. They are very strong. So until we are able to build ourselves into groups, into strong force, that is when we can say, okay, yes, we can engage effectively. But if we don't come together, and that's why I keep emphasizing coming together in our various states, I challenge those of us taking part in this training to go back and engage with our fellow women with disabilities, bring them together and begin to collaborate. And let's see how that power will not earn us what we want. There is strength in the power of collaboration when we work together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adebayo. Sana is in the house, she's in the meeting, but I don't know what exactly is wrong with her audio. She could hear us, but we can't hear her as she's talking. Let's just try a few more options.
Hello?
If it's possible.
Hello? Can I come?
Go on.
Hello?
Okay, you have a comment.
Hello?
Please go on briefly.
Yes, okay. It's Salamatu from Adamawa. Hello?
Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Adebayo, for wonderful presentation. I just want to make a comment on the issue of that you have said you have all stated that the era of charity has gone. Of course, it is true. Just to share an experience of what is happening in Adamawa State, as I think last 2 weeks, we have been able to write a letter to the chairman COVID-19 committee in Adamawa, who happened to be the secretary to the state governor. So we just explained to him that we want the representation of person with disability in the committee, and he was telling us that we are taking him for granted. Disability. He just said this and said that just for him, just because he's listening to us. So what Dr. Adebayo has said now, that the era of charity has gone, I really agree with him. So that's my take on the era of charity has gone. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your
Thank you very much.
input. We
Go
really do
on, Blessing.
appreciate. Okay, so that's Shola, are we able to hear you now?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Ah, you're welcome. Finally, we're able to hear you.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, very good, very, very good. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened to my laptop. I have to just use my phone now.
I think you need to mute everybody. You need to mute everybody because there's a lot of background noise.
Hello. Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I hear you. I'm from
Can you hear?
Sokoto.
Okay, my name is
Program
Shola.
of
Oh,
Can you please
pregnancy
go ahead with your
with
your
disability.
presentation? We are
Are you hearing me?
There's someone speaking already. There's someone speaking from Sokoto speaking.
Yes. The program of the pregnancy in disability. When we go to the hospital, they don't care about us. Because I have that. Hello?
Please go ahead.
Hello?
1 minute. Please go
We're
ahead.
hearing you.
1 minute.
Speak.
Okay, I think we lost her. Shola, can we have you?
Okay. Thank you
fast,
very
please.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm just going to. Good afternoon, everyone. It's been a pleasure listening to you. Yes, listening to you, and especially the first and second speaker. They really laid a really good foundation for me. Dr. Adebayo, thank you very much because you were really honest with us. Yeah, you were really honest, and your presentation is going to serve as a foundation for what I'm going to be talking about. Yeah, so today I'll be talking about understanding the use of good communication skills and ICT strategies for policy advocacy, partnership building, and forming strong solidarity among women with disabilities during and after COVID-19. Now, I'm going to simplify this topic to mean that I'll be talking to you about using good communication skills to call for a better life for yourself, to call for inclusion, to call for representation. Do we understand? So do not mind the big grammar that is on the that I used in my slides. Now, so the objective of this discussion, I hope I'm not going too fast, please. So the objective of this discussion is to talk about how you can use communication skills, like I said before, to call for a better life for yourself. I've been listening to everyone since morning. We've been talking about some of our challenges, some of the issues we've been encountering as women with disabilities. The truth is that everyone goes through challenges, but because of your disability, you tend to feel the heat more. So what can you do to get your voices heard? What can you do to call for a good life for yourself? What can you do to make Nigerian government know that you are more than your disability, that you are able to contribute, to the society? So we are going to be talking about communication. Now, since morning, we've been communicating, we've been talking, we've been listening, we've been responding, we've been having conversations. So the bottom line of communication is you are exchanging information. Dr. Adebayo has spoken with us. The first speaker also has spoken with us, and we've been listening. Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
I'm hearing you.
Okay. So, yeah. So we've been talking since morning, and it shows we've been communicating. There is no big grammar to describe communication. Communication is just about doing what? We are exchanging information. We are talking. Do we understand? So the most important thing about communication is that there is a feedback. Now, Dr. Adebayo spoke with us, and from his presentation, we started asking questions. The questions we are asking, or we've been asking, signifies our feedback. Oh, I have this question, I don't understand. Oh, this is what I think, So you are giving him feedback. You are asking questions, or you are commenting on what he has said. You are giving him feedback. So in a situation where you are trying to communicate with the government, you are trying to communicate to people, and you are not receiving feedback, it means that you have not communicated. When we communicate, sometimes it's either we get an active communication or an active feedback, or a passive feedback. Sometimes when you are talking to your child, and when you ask them questions, sometimes they talk, they are like, okay. And sometimes they give you feedback probably by their gestures, by the way they act. Do we understand? Now, we are going to talk about channels of communication. We have the television, the mass media, which includes the television, the radio, the billboards, the magazines, newspapers, and all. We also have the social media, with technology. Thankful for social media, and thankfully we are doing this because there's social media. So I really want this presentation to be interactive. So I'll be asking us one or two questions. I'm not going to stay very long because, like I said before, Dr. Adebayo has laid the foundation. And like I said before, I'm just going to be discussing with you how you can use communication, how you can use good communication, to call for a better life for yourself, to call for inclusion and representation. Now, when messages are sent via television, radio, billboards, and others, do you think they get feedback? Do you think these people get feedback? You can comment, you can make a comment, or quickly unmute yourself and talk. I just need a response from someone to show that you are following. Anyone, please.
No, I don't think. No, I don't think they get feedback.
Why do you think they do not get? Okay, why do you think they do not get feedback, ma?
I'm following you.
So why do you think they do not get feedback?
It's either the people. Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you.
It's either the people they are sending it to did not get information.
Screen. Changing the screen, you are fast enough.
Okay, I'm too fast in changing the screen.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Blessing, please take care of that. Okay, someone is commenting about the fact that they don't get feedback.
Yes, so it's either they did not get the message, or they could not interpret, like understand the message, or they don't even know how to give feedback.
Okay, that is why you think they don't get feedback, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I'm going to. Okay, Blessing, are you there? I'm using my phone, so I can't share the screen. I had an issue with my laptop. But if you want the slide,
we will share all the documents at the end of the meeting by tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. It's all right. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so thank you very much for following me. So yeah, like I said before, I asked if television, the radio, billboards, if they get feedback. I would like to tell you that they get feedback. How do they get feedback? They get feedback from the reactions of people. Don't forget that these people are also, sometimes they're on social media, sometimes they do a program where you call in. Sometimes when someone says something on TV, people can take to the street and say, why will you say this and that? Sometimes it calls, what they say on TV calls for conversation, amongst people. And one way or the other, they get feedback. What I am trying to say is that whatsoever information you are giving out, whatsoever communication you are giving out, it is important that what makes it effective is that you get feedback. Do we understand? That is what makes it very, very effective. Now, we are going to talk about communicating to diverse audience. Now, while you are communicating, don't forget that we are still talking about making use of good communication to call for a better life for yourself. How you can leverage on the power of communication. So while you are communicating to a diverse audience, you need to be broad and be specific. It might sound kind of contradictory, I understand. Now, for example, we are having a meeting with women with disabilities. We have included the deaf people, we have included people who are visually impaired, we have included various kinds of people from the disability world. Do we understand? We are being broad. Now, when we talk about specificity, Dr. Adebayo mentioned something the other time when he said that when women with disabilities come together, what are they talking about? Are they just requesting for food? Is someone requesting for food and the other person requesting for education? Or are they coming together to request for education? So let's say, for example, you are calling for education, you are calling for a good education amongst women with disabilities. Your message is specific. Oh, we want education. Amongst where? It's a broad audience. Do you understand? A broad audience of, oh, they are women with disabilities. I hope we get what I'm trying to say. In another way, when we are talking about being broad and being specific, while you are calling for a better life for yourself, the people you are advocating for, they are able to relate to your story. Because the deaf people, and the visually impaired person, they have separate challenges. But one way or the other, they come under the umbrella of disabilities people. Do we understand? So you are making, but when you share stories, you are sharing stories in a way that everyone can relate to it. We have a diverse audience, but when you share your story, or when you share a story, or when you are trying to communicate, every one person can do what? Can relate to what you are trying to say. What you are being specific to, what are we calling for? What are we asking for? This is what we are communicating about. Both the deaf person, both the visually impaired person is calling for education, but we are under this umbrella communicating this to the government. I hope you understand. So, in what ways can we get the message across? I hope I'm not being too fast. Please, if I'm too fast, kindly call me back and I'll explain. So, in what ways can we get the message across? But before we talk about that, we are going to talk about how we can get the message across. Now, like I said before, good communication is very, very important. Before you are able to call for a better life for yourself, or call for inclusion, or call for a policy change, or call for representation, you must communicate well to the understanding of the person you are communicating to. You must make sure that your message is well understood, is simple enough to understand, to be understood. You are factored in your audience. Who are the people that will probably be at the receiving end of this message? And what is the means of delivering this message? Do you understand? Like I said, there are various channels of communication. We have the radio, don't forget, we have the television, Don't forget we have social media. Don't forget we have billboards. Just think of the various ways that media gets to you. All the ways that media gets to you, that a message from the government, a message from this person or that person, just think of all the various ways they get to you. So when you are sending out your message, there are 3 things you must factor in. You must look at the message, what the message you are sending out. You must factor in your audience, those people who are the receiving and who will receive this message, and the delivery of the message. What channel are you using to deliver this message? Now, let's talk about the message. Your message has to be clear. There's no beating around the bush. What are you calling for? You should explain what you want. Oh, we are calling for education, quality education among women with disabilities. We want our children to go to school. We want scholarships for our children. We want our children to be represented, whether in government, in different sectors. We want this. This is what we want. Your message must be very, very clear. And while you are sending out this message, oh, if our children is in school, they can have a better life for themselves. You know, they are, for example, they are visually impaired people outside the country who are doing great things. You know, you can make examples. Just make sure that your message is very clear, very simple and very clear. Do we understand it? Your message is simple. There's no need for dilly-dallying. There's no need for beating around the bush. Make sure that your message is very, very clear. Now, your message should be crafted in a way that it will interest the audience. Now, this is where I'm going to talk about the power of storytelling. Now, when we talk about the power of storytelling, it's a broad message on its own. But what I'm trying to say is that sometimes when you don't know how to go about the message, tell a story. So there was a time, I think last year, yes, when people on wheelchair were calling for ramps on different in public places. Do you understand? They were calling for ramps in different, where it is accessible for them, where they can wheel pass, and just accessible public services for themselves. So when this person was going to share her story, she shared it on Facebook, and she did not even go straight to the point by saying she shared her story, and people were able to relate in a way that it was a long story. She shared it in a way that she carried everyone along, so much that people that were able were even sharing the stories and asking the government to represent these people. Do you understand? So your message in a way must be compelling in a way that you carry your audiences along. I don't have much time, so I'm sorry, I'll have to rush it. So now we are still talking about getting your message across, the means of delivering your message. For example, what kind of message are you passing across? There are some messages that is meant for TV. There are some that is meant for radio. You need to be able to define what message is meant for what channel. Are you writing a proposal? Is it a face-to-face presentation? Do you have to do a peaceful protest? You must be able to know what kind of message, or what kind of message will fit, or what kind of delivery will fit a message. I hope you understand. And also, I would also like to note that you cannot just say that, oh, we want representation once and you end it there. You must be a continuous asking for it. You must continue to ask for it. You must continue to ask for it. And I'll tell us that while we are, trying to get our messages across, we must consider other people in our group. Do we understand? We are saying that we are women with disabilities. We have people, deaf people. We have people that are using wheelchair. We have people who are visually impaired. Now, when you are using a channel, there's no one size fits all for a channel for all people with disabilities. But you must put in consideration other people. Let's say, for example, you are using the TV. Now, sounds are coming out from the TV. A deaf person cannot hear. Do you understand? Now you have to subtitle, or what you are saying on the TV must be written across the screen. A deaf person must be able to read what is on the screen. No matter how good the communication is, if it is placed on the radio, the deaf person has been automatically cut off. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So what we must practice what we are preaching. We are calling for inclusion. So even in our midst, we must include every one person. We must include every one person. I'm so sorry, I don't have much time. So we must include every one person. When you are using the TV, consider your the person who cannot hear. When you are using radio, consider the person who cannot hear. When you are using television, you need to the post should be descriptive, well illustrated for the purpose of other people. So I'm going to take you to how you can use social media to call for a better life for yourself, or to advocate for yourself. Because we are in a world of social media, everything is online. The internet, people are using the internet to call for, a better life. And the surprising thing is that government is listening. So I'm going to quickly share a story. So during the lockdown, when the lockdown was still very intense, the people of Ondo, they hadn't, locked down their state then. But people went on social media and they were asking the government to lock down the state because, they didn't want to put themselves at risk. And guess what? I think by the next day or the second day, after they started this advocacy online, the government locked down the states. So I'm trying to tell you the power of social media. Because one, you may not have enough money to be able to go to television or to be able to go to the radio to get your message across. But there's something you can use at your disposal, very, very free, and it is the social media. So I believe some of us, we have Facebook on our phones. Some of us, we are not familiar with some applications, and I'm going to be telling you about them today. So one of the most effective social media platform that you can use in advocating for yourself, in fact, that is great in advocating for yourself, is Twitter. It's a microblogging platform. Even the president of Nigeria is on Twitter. Even the US president is on Twitter. And using Twitter is used to drive positive engagement. Twitter is used to, you can use Twitter for anything you want to use it. Anything. You can use it to get your messages across, to the government. With people retweeting for you, retweeting your messages, you can get across to, to the government. So there are different social media platforms, and it is very important you know their uses. For example, Facebook and Twitter are one of the most effective advocacy tools that you can use, and they are at your disposal. What you just have to do is just download them, and you get to work immediately. A woman was complaining all these things we were talking about, our challenges, when it comes to COVID-19, as regards COVID-19. Do you know that you can share your stories on Facebook, on Twitter, while calling for, a better life for yourself? You are telling people that, oh, as a person with disability, I went to the bank and I wasn't able to withdraw, or they didn't attend to me very well because I'm a person. See, the more you raise, like I said before, the more you raise your voices, and Dr. Adebayo said it, the more you keep talking, the more you keep using these advocacy tools like Facebook and Twitter, like I mentioned, the more you keep sharing your stories, the more you are putting yourself out there. And I need to mention that there's no need to be shy. You need to take advantage of every media publicity that you can get, because it is enough that you are the background. It is now time that you push yourself out there. Do you understand? So these are free tools that you can use. Facebook, like I said, and Twitter are some of the advocacy tools to call for a better life for yourself. Most political office holders, they are on Twitter. So the more you share your stories, the more you share the everyday challenges you go through, it is not that you are looking for sympathy. It is your right. We should all have access to the Nigeria's resources. One person or one category shouldn't be cut down for the other. So this is what it is. You need to share your stories online. Go to Twitter, go to Facebook, share your stories, every challenges you go through, write about it, keep calling for it. You can use hashtags. You can, this is another topic on its own, but I am trying to tell you that make use of social media. It is one of the best ways, to bring attention to the issues that women with disabilities are facing in Nigeria. So I'm going to go to while you are using social media, how to use it, these social media platforms, for example, Facebook and Twitter, it is not something too bogus. You just have to just share your stories. Articulate your thoughts. Oh, I went to the bank today. As a person with disabilities, they didn't attend to me very well. I was treated like this. I was treated like this. I'll be using this opportunity to call for, to ask banks. Because what you are doing is that, for example, when your children, when they are educated, or people with disabilities, when they are well educated, they can go into sectors. For example, a person on a wheelchair that is working in a bank knows that there should be a ramp passage in a bank. So when you are represented in sectors, you see that life will be better for yourself, for you. And how can you do this? You can do this by using social media, like I said, Facebook. Yeah. It is important that disabled people organizations also make use of technology to strengthen their operations, such as holding regular meetings, advocacy and other operations. For example, there is a lockdown. If you want to have a meeting, it's not possible that you are gathered. You can have a meeting on Zoom. You can take pictures, deliberate on things, go back on social media, tell them what you've deliberated upon, and issues like that. You need to get familiar with technology, and you don't have to hide yourself. If you want a better life for yourself, if you want policy change, if you want to be represented in government, if you want the government to represent, if you want to be represented in government, yes. If you want if you want to bring attention to what is happening, to the challenges you have as women with disabilities, I think that, or I believe that, social media will go a very long way in helping you to bring attention to your challenges. So I'm going to be concluding now. And I'll conclude with the specific message that you want to communicate. And the recipients will determine the channel that is appropriate. Like I said before. For example, whatsoever message you are communicating, whoever you are communicating it to. Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. So the message you are trying to pass across, and your audience will determine the channel that you are using. If you want to talk to, for example, you want to talk to the president of Nigeria, Twitter is a very good, social media to use. And I am going to say that you don't have to wait to have a lot of money to go to television, to go to radio, to go to TV to pass your messages across. Can you hear me? I'm seeing the interpreter. Can you hear me? Interpreter, can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
Okay. So you can use social media platforms, like I said, Facebook and Twitter. They are very good advocacy tools, to call for better life for yourself. And I think on the basis of what we are discussing today, we are trying to, like I said before, the topic is about advocacy. We are talking about advocacy for policy advocacy. It means that one way or the other, you want to, talk to the government. You want them to get your attention. So these social media platforms, they are, very great ways to draw attention to yourself. So I'm going to give us a task now. I want you to identify key strategies to communicate with diverse audience, the diverse, people you have in your group. Imagine that you want to convey an important message to the Minister of Women Affairs about disability issues, while we have people from different parts of the country in that meeting. How would you convey your message? You need to, consider your language also. I know I'm giving us, but it's also a very important thing to consider. You need to, you can't be a Yoruba person and you have a diverse audience around. Let's say someone from Igbo also, and you're speaking Yoruba. Do we understand? So on this note, I hope we all understand my presentation on understanding the use of good communication skills to call for a better life, to advocate for good policies for yourselves. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, I'm still here. So,
Okay,
blessing.
thank you so much for your time, Sholabe. But I think we lost the interpreters, so I'm trying to ensure we get them back. Just a
Okay.
moment. Okay, so the interpreter is back. I think we can proceed. Thank you so much, Sholabe, for your presentation. And I believe in all of those things, communication is key. And while communicating, we need to understand the importance of feedback and using the appropriate channel.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I have just like an example you made, I was on Twitter recently and I saw a post of a man is the proud wheelchair user, that's the handle, and he was complaining of how he wanted to use a bank, I think a GT bank, and how, because of the whole lockdown, the whole COVID-19, people do not get direct access to the bank, and he couldn't have access to the bank directly, so he was on a queue for a very long time. And the Disability Act actually provided that queues like that should exclude persons with disability. So in that instance, he couldn't access the banking hall because there was no wheelchair accessible entrance. It was not given priority outside the queue. So all of those things are what we need to actually take note of. And it's good to use the social media, and we shouldn't miss the person that we are targeting. So I would not want to talk to Buhari, the president of Nigeria, and then I go to Snapchat or go to WhatsApp. I don't have his contact.
Yeah.
So using the appropriate channel to communicate is actually very important. Thank you so much, Shola.
And we will be surprised that people are listening.
Exactly.
You know, the more you keep putting yourself out there, that one day the attention will come. You will get a response.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I want to sincerely apologize for ending the meeting so late because of technical glitches that we had at the beginning, and also the difficulty that people had to join the meeting. And also, I want to implore us, the task that Shola has given us is for us to be able to discuss it tomorrow when we are converging tomorrow. So let's please.
Hello, Blessing.
The background noise is too much. I cannot convey the
Okay, I should
message.
mute everybody.
I need to say something, please, Blessing.
Okay, sir.
When you mute, I will say I will mute myself and talk.
Okay, I think the audio is better now. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Okay, I was going to say that the noise is too much, but I was going to say that for my presentation for tomorrow, I will want the participants to do two things. The first is that they need to share their experiences with, well, like we heard from was this Sokoto State or Adamawa? I can't remember the state now. How they've been trying to engage. We want people to put it down, and tomorrow we want to share more experiences on how we have been able to participate in the management. Please, can you mute and let me come up again? The noise is much. Okay, I can speak. I can speak now. I can speak now. Can I speak? Go on now.
Go ahead. Yes.
Okay, so all I was going to say is that the first task I would want them to do, that we'll be doing tomorrow, but I understand we'll be doing a lot of practicals tomorrow, right?
Yes, sir.
So first task I would want participants to prepare is that can they share with us the experience they've had with getting involved in the management of humanitarian crisis in their various states.
Okay.
You know, and gladly somehow, I mean, I use that in a very reserved way. It's like a particular person whose mic is on and it's making a lot of noise. Somebody has put on his mic again, her mic again, and that's.
Okay.
Please mute them again, so that the interpreters can hear.
Done. Hello, Dr. Adebayo, you can go ahead.
Okay. So we would want them to share experiences on first, if there is any humanitarian crisis in their state. Who is this particular person that is unmuting herself, that's giving us this noisy background? Can you identify that person, Blessing?
I can, but I'm unable to.
Are you in a... Okay. Okay, so can you hear me now, Blessing?
Yes, please, we can.
Okay, now, so we want them to tell us, one, if there is, apart from COVID-19, if there is any other peculiar humanitarian issue in their state, because this is very important for engagement, for evidence when we are I mean, with this program going forward. And that's beyond this 2-day training now. We need to know what's the humanitarian issue apart from COVID-19 that is general to all of us. What other humanitarian issue in their state are they confronted with? Some are dealing with issues of kidnapping, some issues of cults, and then how is it impacting on them? Can they share experience, one or two sentences on how it is impacting on them? Then thirdly, how are they involved, in the management of this crisis? Is the government talking to them? Is there any committee that's been set up? Are they members of the committee? And if they are not, are they being consulted? Okay, to know their issues. So we need to have this information. We need to let them put all of this together in a note that they're going to be reading out, and possibly they should snap and share with you, maybe via WhatsApp, or I don't know how, so we need to have those, that exercise tomorrow. And then maybe what recommendations, what suggestions do they have to enhance more inclusion for women with disabilities in the management of humanitarian crisis, in the delivery of humanitarian interventions. So those are the questions. I hope you got all that I've said. We need the participants to come up with this so that we can discuss. That will form the basis for our discussion, tomorrow. And this will also serve as background in preparing position papers for further engagement as far as this program is concerned. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Adebayo. We really appreciate that. So I've collated all the questions together with the task Shola assigned to us earlier, and I'm going to share it in the chat box for all of us right now. And I want to implore us to, even if it's just a one-liner, we should try to have a feedback or a response to all of those questions by tomorrow, and hoping to share them. So that's how we're going to start the session, by discussing all of those things, and also by discussing all of those things, and also sharing it with us in the chat box. I want to appreciate all of us. Sincere apologies for finishing behind schedule, and this is trying to tell us that we should all please ensure that we join the meeting early enough by tomorrow. So the attendance form and the registration form, the attendance form and the payment form, it is very, very important, highly important. But if you think you want to forfeit any other thing, you can decide not to fill it. but I want to implore us to just please fill it. Do you have any comments, question? Maybe not so much question, so we don't spend too much time before we close for today. Does anyone have any input? Does anyone have any input? Okay. Because I muted everyone, I just saw someone who has a comment raising hand. Okay, equal can we have you talk, please? Hello. Hello, does anyone have any comments before we close the session for today?
Hello.
Hi, can you please
Okay. Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon once again.
Okay, my name is Ayobami from Lagos, representing Nigerian Association of the Blind, Lagos chapter. Please, I have a sorry. Please, I have a oh Jesus. Please, I have a quick question for Dr. Adebayo. Oh jeez. What's this? Please, I have a quick question for Dr. Adebayo. Sorry, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but we might just be able to take your question ahead of tomorrow because of time. The meeting also
Okay,
ended by 12.
Okay, I know, but please let me just quickly drop this question.
Please go ahead.
And okay, my question is, as for me, I'm an educator, right? So I have to ask this question. What's the impact of, let's say, Jonapid as regards what's the impact of Jonapid as regards the education of let's say persons with disabilities? But let me take our own let me use our own cluster as an example, like blind person. I'm sorry. Oh God. Sorry, are you still with me?
Madam Blessing, please, I can't get the question. Can we?
Okay, I decided to mute the microphone.
Are you
Okay,
still
so
with me?
Ayobami, I would implore you to kindly send your question to the email address that reached out to you with the invitation for this meeting. That should be
Okay, I think I heard
you got the question.
I heard Ayobami's question. She was asking about how Jonapid or the other disability groups are working to enhance education of maybe she was talking about women and girls with disabilities, as it were. The quick response I will give to that, because of course education is important in all of this we are saying. If we must, we know that of course women and girls with disabilities are disproportionately have disproportionate access to education. You know, it's always the negatives, you know, as far as women with disabilities are concerned. And that's why we are trying to right some of these wrongs by engaging those of us who are women leaders in our various states, you know, so that we can go back and become the change we want to see. What we are doing, for example, in Lagos, we've been engaging the state government throughout this COVID-19 crisis to make sure that the e-learning programs are accessible to women, to girls with disabilities, as it were. Okay, so I'm sure we'll talk about this more if my knowledge of the agenda is correct. More of it, probably talk about more of it tomorrow. Blessing, am I correct?
Yes, sir, you're right, sir.
So, but I know that quite a lot is going on. I also know that the Albino Foundation, for example, is also doing something. There's a conference it is putting together with education stakeholders, to ensure that there is access, during this lockdown and restrictions for girls and women with disabilities, or for persons with disabilities generally. So there's quite a bit that is going on here and there to intervene. So we want to employ us to join us tomorrow. Ayobami, I know you very well. Please join us tomorrow. We'll go into more details as we heard the organizers say that the time is really fast spent, and so we don't want to take much more time. But this issue you have raised will be adequately addressed, tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you once again, Dr. Adebayo. Thank you everyone for taking our time to be a part of the meeting today. We really do appreciate you all. Let's keep it a date. The program continues tomorrow, and it's just beyond the 2 days. So we'll be briefing us about what we will be doing after the training by tomorrow. Let's ensure that we fill the attendance form, please, as well as the payment form. So if we have any questions about the payment form or any issue, we can discuss it tomorrow. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate every one of you. God bless you. Thanks to our sign language interpreters. Thank you, everybody. You've been so wonderful. See you tomorrow. You can unmute your mic to say bye so you can have your voice.
Bye.
Justin, I think we should take photograph.
Yeah, I took photos here, but not all videos were on.
Okay, maybe tomorrow, please. Let that be part of the. Let that be part of the agenda.
Okay, sir. All right, sir. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Say bye and leave.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye. This will be a brand new. Okay. Me too. God bless you.
Appreciation. All women with disabilities across the 36 states and FCT, the facilitators, and Urgent Action Fund Africa. A production of BONews Service 2020.